Welcome to the Aces of the Phone. My name is Miranda Martin. I am Direct to Symmetry in the Ryan Miller, Rob Puckett, Marshall Whalen hierarchy. Excited to share some knowledge with you guys today with my training compadre, Mr. Ben Miller, on the line today. Super jazzed up here.
Hey, buddy. How are you doing?
Outstanding.
Awesome.
Outstanding. So
We're
I
going to
know
rock
we're
it
going to
today.
Let's do it. I know that one thing that really kind of stood out to me, I know we're all going through the magic of thinking big. And our last three chapters here was going through chapters 5 through 7. And something just really, really kind of stood out to me, Ben, that I found in the beginning of these chapters. It said here, I found that I'd been preaching to myself why I couldn't get ahead instead of why I could. I'd been selling myself short, and I found this streak of self-depreciation sold through in everything that I did. Then it dawned on me that no one else was going to start believing me until I started believing in myself. Isn't that so true that we can't make people believe in themselves, but that's where it all starts, right? Is believing that we can accomplish what we're here to do.
It's true. In our old business, Miranda, we had something called the 3 beliefs. And the first belief is belief in self, right? If we can believe in ourselves, there's nothing that we can't accomplish. The second belief was belief in the system, which we all know the symmetry system is the reason why we're growing as fast as we're growing. And the last one is belief in the product. And we all have that conviction inside of us that knows that this product is necessary for nearly everybody that's out there. I love that quote. I think it's super, super important for us to believe in ourselves, because if we can't believe in ourselves, we can't expect others to believe in ourselves as well.
So right now we've got through these first 7 chapters. I love chapter 5 because it's really a lot about goal setting. The second one is how our appearance kind of speaks to ourselves and to other people. And then also number 7 is how to make our environment go first class. So in chapter 5, another thing that really kind of stood out to me, Ben, and when I was going through here, was capacity is a state of mind. So how much we do or we don't do is fully dependent on what we think. And I think this goes back a lot of times, Ben, especially when I got really mindful of the words that I would use like externally. Sometimes I found that I was still using some of these words internally. Like, for example, let's say I'm going for 15 appointments, but now it's Saturday afternoon and I only have 4 or 5. Maybe I'm thinking subconsciously, man, it's going to be impossible for me to get my 15 this week. Or, man, it's impossible on Friday. It seems like everyone's in a bad mood. So I guess the question I have for you guys is, are you subconsciously using some of these self-defeating words as you talk to yourself, or maybe even externally as you kind of are getting frustrated on the phone? And I think that's just so important to be mindful of.
That's interesting, man. I can remember when we first got started in symmetry, because of our background, when we were told that you had to make 15 appointments, Miranda, to make over 100,000 a year each week, the first thing in my mind was, that's it? Because in our business, we were having to make 30, 40, 50 appointments a week. As an appointment setter, that's what you were expected to do. So when I heard the number 15, in my head, I already knew that was possible. I already knew we could do it because we've done it and we've done more than that. So it wasn't a question of if it was possible. And right off the box, I don't know about you, Miranda, but me, to get to the 15 was just a matter of time. I wasn't thinking it was going to be hard. But then again, there are going to be some agents out there that aren't used to dialing on the phone. So when we tell them 15 appointments, they might not know how easy or hard it is, but once they first start dialing and they start getting some rejection, suddenly that goal of 15 becomes a mountain. It becomes Mount Everest. And you're thinking to yourself, how is this going to be possible for me to get to that number if I'm keep getting all these no's? And now subconsciously, we're using all these negative words that are going to prove you right. At the end, it is going to be impossible because that's how you're thinking.
Yeah, whatever thought you have, guys, you're right. You either are going to thinking you can't do this or you're thinking that you can. So I love how in the chapter 5, they ask you to make a list of reasons why you can do this. Let's put our thoughts into constructive forward movement thoughts. And that's how success is born. It's just starting with that right attitude. And I know, Ben, whenever anyone learns anything new, so those of you that are brand new on the line, this is probably uncomfortable for you. I know these concepts that Ben and I are introducing to you are going to be uncomfortable for you. That we're uncomfortable too when we learn them and when we learn new things. But if you are uncomfortable, that's exactly how you're supposed to feel. Because remember that growth happens outside of our comfort zone.
Yeah, and if we're thinking about the word comfort, I know internally when I start to do something that's new, immediately I get a little bit choked up and I get worried and all these negative things start to come in my mind. So very quickly, as an instinct, I'll start to do things that remind me of something that is comfortable. And now this is a flaw. It's really a pitfall that a lot of people might do in the very beginning, because if we're talking about the phones now, what's uncomfortable are the words that are printed on the paper, because those words you've never said in the same row before. Like you've never said them before, so it is going to be coming across uncomfortable. So naturally, what we're going to say to ourselves is, how do I make this to be more comfortable? And I'm going to tell you all what I actually spoke to an agent about yesterday. See, if you start to change things around, you may or may not be successful. And that's the beauty of the symmetry system. The system is a proven system that if we apply it the right way, we're going to be successful. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when. But when you start to kind of lean towards the comfort zone again, you start to make decisions that might negatively impact your business, like changing the script, right? Because you feel like maybe it's going to come across better. And you're saying that to yourself so you can give yourself an alibi on why you're not pushing through the growth, learning something new, learning those scripts, etc. So Miranda, this is spot on. I love it.
So the chapter goes on to ask us, how are we viewing ourselves? You know, they tell a story in here about three bricklayers, and they asked the first one, "What are you doing?" He said, "I'm a bricklayer." They asked the next guy, "What are you doing?" He said, "Getting paid $9 an hour." And then they asked the third bricklayer, and he said, "I'm building the world's largest cathedral." So I want to ask you, how are you viewing what you're doing? How are you viewing your dials? Are you viewing yourself as a telemarketer or as someone that is going to change these people's lives when a tragedy happens? How can we see ourselves bigger so that we can project that confidence in into those phone calls?
Yeah, there's another part in the book, Miranda, where this young lady was telling a group of her average friends how she was going to be the vice president of the company that she works at. And do you know what that response was from that group of friends? Probably not very positive, right? They laughed at her. And instead, what she did is she then kind of imagined what she would do if she talked to the president of her current company, that she was going to be the vice president. Do you think he would have laughed?
No.
Probably not. And the reason why is because big people appreciate big thinking. And when we're dialing and we're going through the process of symmetry, you got to think big. You can't just be saying, I'm just dialing I'm dialing the book appointments. That's not what it is. We're dialing to protect families. And that change of thought will add an additional amount of enthusiasm in your voice to make sure you accomplish what you have to.
I love what they said, Ben, in chapter 7 about how you look on the outside affects how you think on the inside. Um, they give this story about how when things are properly packaged, it can sell for twice the price. And they use the example of at a grocery store. You know, let's say that there's the generic brand and then you've got the name brand, and it's like they use grapes. One of them's just like kind of sitting there in a bag, and the other one's got like this pretty wrapper, and it's like all done up with a bow. And it's the same thing, but one of them just looks better, and you can sell that for double. How come that is the exact same thing with us? If we look important, it helps us to think important. And I know that Ben, when we used to run our call center together before this, like these people never met with clients face to face. Yet we always recommended that they come in dressed to win because it's going to make them think sharper. So it was so funny. We actually had an agent that was reading ahead in the book, and all of a sudden he walks in a complete suit, you know, and sits down at his desk. And I go, "What's going on, Jay?" And he goes, "Chapter 6." He sat down at his desk.
That is
And
so true.
Yeah, I'll never forget that. And it's so true. Like, imagine when you get all dolled up, to go out on, fancy dinner. Like, how much better do you feel once you're kind of like dressed in your best?
Yeah, that's a big one, right? I know there's, for me, it's so easy because we work from home because we're not here to impress anybody, right? So it's easy to roll out of bed and stay in pajamas and start dialing on the phone. But really, in that scenario, are you preparing yourself for success? Because you're really not dressed very important right now. So maybe that's coming across. Maybe you're coming across too relaxed. You know what I mean? That's because you're in PJs. So dress for success. I love it.
Yeah, all these little things, they just make such a big difference. I know another thing that is a strategy that really helped me win, and still to this day, but especially when I was new, is the strategy that they talk about of having mini pep talks with yourself multiple times a day. I was never comfortable with doing sales in the home. And I remember on the phone and when I'd be knocking on people's doors, one part of me was like, please don't be home, because I was uncomfortable with it. I had to get out of my comfort zone. And I would really tell myself, like, I believed in Santa Claus for 8 years of my life. Let me just believe in myself for the next 5 minutes. And that kind of helped me get over that initial hello and just kind of get in there and try to like not put so much pressure on myself. Another thing on the phone is saying, you know what, no stands for next opportunity. So as the phone's dialing, or maybe I've had a few no's in a row, I'm thinking, you know what, this person's going to be interested. Like, just having these positive talks, Ben, how important do you think that is to just making sure that we're geared up and ready to go once we get someone live on the phone?
Yeah, man, it's super important because in the end, you're preparing for one thing or the other. Either you're preparing for success or you're preparing for failure. If you're telling yourself that you're afraid on the phone or that you don't want any more rejection or that you're not doing good, you're setting yourself up for failure, right? So we get to choose that. Now, in reality, this is true. Go back to one of the trainings that we did a few days ago or a few weeks ago. We gave you the outline in terms of the expectations per lead source. And a lot of this in terms of how you feel you're doing on the phone is going to be based on what you should be doing in terms of results, depending on the lead source that you're dialing. We have agents that were dialing one or getting 1 to 2 appointments out of every 10 people they spoke to on 50-cent leads, and they thought that was bad. But when we told them that was really good, suddenly that changed their perspective, and they ended the day extremely well. So just the power of thinking is just amazing.
I remember a game we used to play, Ben, when we had someone struggling on the phone. I would actually have them like repeat out loud, John Smith, like when they saw the name they were calling, Ben Miller is going to be interested. And they would like say it out loud. I'm like, you got to do it until you book someone. And normally they would book like the next person they got on the phone just because their thought was in the right place now. So that's something fun you can try too. So this is probably my favorite thing, guys, and I'm going to jump ahead to chapter 12 here because there's something that a strategy that really helped me become consistent, and it's in this book. And they kind of introduce it in chapter 5, but then they jump ahead to chapter 12 to really show you how to do it. And they say a goal is an objective, a purpose. A goal is more than a dream. It's a dream that's being acted upon. A goal is more than a hazy, oh, I wish I could. A goal is a clear, this is what I'm working towards. Nothing happens, no forward steps are taken until a goal is established. Without goals, individuals are just wander through life. They stumble along, never knowing where they're going. So they never go anywhere. Goals are essential to success as heirs to life. No one ever stumbles upon success without a goal. No one ever lives without air. So get a clear fix on where you want to go. And one of the things that was just so critical for me, and I call it an RSSS plan, which is reflect, strategize, schedule, and share your plan. And one of the things that I used to do, and I'm going to share this with you, was every single week on Sunday, I would go ahead and I would reflect back on, I would make some goals for myself and I would share them. So I'm trying to find my outline here, but here it is. So every week I would send off my plan. So my goals for the week was to make 400 phone calls. It took me over 400 phone calls. And this week I only booked 13. But I wanted to sit with 10. I only sat with 7. But I wrote a lot of deals, right? And then I wrote back what I wanted to do every week. I want to get through these things. And then I would write down if I did it or not. And I would send that off to everyone. And then I would write what went well, what can I improve, and what am I going to do next week. So it was just a little strategy that I did with myself every single week, not only for me, but to hold myself accountable to like everyone that was in my circle of influence. So I sent this to all my uplines. I would send it to like Ben Miller. I would send it to anyone that would really listen that was an influencer in my life. And so just taking a few moments, and I recommend doing this probably on Sunday. That was probably one of the biggest game changers that that I did for myself every single week. Ben, is there anything that you would kind of add to that?
Yeah, I mean,
I've got a lot of stuff
that
open.
to me is yeah, that to me is just accountability, and it helps give you some sort of direction. And one of the things I still do to this day, it's just at a different level now, is I
Uh-huh.
get that sense of direction from my mentor. Man, I talk to
Yeah.
Ryan every day because I want him to know what I'm doing so he can give me critiques on whether or not I'm heading in the right direction, and then maybe some suggestions on how to better be more efficient with my time when it comes to maybe recruiting or whatever it is. Same thing when you guys get started and you're producing. You need to be talking to your mentor before an appointment, during an appointment, and after an appointment. By doing that, you cut your learning curve in half, but it gives you a sense of a path, what you've got to focus on next. Because if you just focus on everything, it becomes overwhelming and you actually get nothing accomplished.
All right. No, I love that. But I would just recommend whatever strategy that you're going to be doing. And that's one that worked. Oh, this is what I was looking for. Through all that. Whatever strat. So take a picture of this with your phone because it looks a lot more basic when I don't have all my notes there. But whatever strategy that you're doing, I just recommend that you have a clear outline of where you're going, right? And then reflect on it. Even if it takes 5 minutes a week, that 5 minutes that you take to just kind of look at where you wanted to go and where you ended up and why is a complete game changer. As they just finished saying in that book, they say that goals are like air, right? No one lives without air. So I take it that part really super serious. And now when I got out of the field, I probably doubled the amount of time that I spent on this kind of stuff. I just think it's so important. But now that we're done with the book for now, we're going to dive into some objection handling stuff today, guys. I know this is one that we had a ton of questions on over the last 2 weeks. So feel free to use the question bar on the right there and type in some rebuttals that you really want to make sure that we get to today. We have a list of them. So hopefully by now you guys already have all these rebuttals memorized. But on the Symmetry website, right under the training tab, it says managing phone objections. So we're going to be looking at the call-in script, and we're going to be using the phone objections today to go over that with everyone. So managing phone objections. So the very first part we're going to do is the first part of the phone call and then the date and time progression. The very first part of the phone call is probably the most important part of your call, because at the start of the call they are qualifying us. And Ben and I really do believe that if we can do this the way we're going to show you today, you're probably not going to get objections in the first part of the phone call. You're not going to have to, well, you will get them, but you won't have to answer them too much if you do this part properly.
Yeah, a lot, guys. If we want to try to simplify what our goal would be on how to handle objections, a lot of it is just going to be delivery, right? It's going to be delivery, and it's going to be a strategy on how to deal with them. A lot of times what people will do when an objection happens is they chase it. They go right into it. They dive at it. They attack it. And Miranda, I think what you're about to share with us is a strategy where it's not aggressive. It actually allows them to feel like that they were heard, but we're able to still continue through the script. So I'm excited to get into the dots.
Okay. So one thing that we really want to kind of make sure everyone takes home with them today is the fact that one objection is not enough. We should always be doing at least 2 pushes before we let someone go. And what we find is when people are new and like someone says, "Can you call me back?" Sometimes the new agent will go, "Okay, what time's good?" instead of pushing 2 times. And so just before we kind of dive in, I just want everyone to wrap their head around the only way you can realize if you're leading this person properly is to at least try to lead them. first we got to lead ourselves, right? With making sure that we know our material. But let's go ahead and dive into this dot method. Let's see here. So if you look at the top of the rebuttals, you'll see that there is, it says objections during the first paragraph. It says, that's exactly why I'm calling. That's a great question. I'll get to that in a minute. So those are really the only two things that you guys need to know to get through this first paragraph, and we'll show you how. So here we go. We've got the best system call-in script. I'm just going to go ahead and put that right here just so you guys can see all of it. And Ben, I'm going to go ahead and start calling you. And if you can throw a rebuttal at me twice or 3 times throughout this first paragraph, and I'm not going to use anything except the 2 rebuttals that we've got on screen here, okay?
Yep, that sounds good.
Okay, cool. And I want you guys to see, I'm not going to pause before or after this rebuttal, and it's probably not going to make sense, the answer that I'm giving him, but I want you to hear that it's not what you say, it's how you say it. Okay, so hi, Ben Miller, please.
This is he.
Hey Ben, my name's Miranda Martin. I'm calling about your mortgage for $250,000 with Wells Fargo Bank, and I was following up with you about that postcard that you received in the mail regarding your mortgage. It was either you or your spouse who called the number and actually followed the phone prompt.
Oh yeah, we're not interested. We're not interested.
Answer a few questions so that we could contact you back regarding your mortgage protection options. I was in the middle of getting your options worked out, Ben, this morning, and I realized I just needed a few seconds.
We have actually already done that.
Okay, well,
yeah, we've already met with somebody.
You did? Okay, well, that's exactly why I'm calling, Ben. I just actually needed to verify just a few things for you, just so I can get several options out to you. When you called in, you indicated that you were born on June 2nd.
How much does this cost?
That's a great question, Ben. I'll get to that in just a second. When you called in, you indicated that your birthday was June 2nd of 1979. Was that correct?
It is, but this is not a good time. Can you call me back?
You know what? That's a great question. I'll get to that in just one moment here. Was that you did say that was the right birthday that I had for you?
Yes.
Okay. So we're being playful.
Oh my God.
We just want to make sure that you understand that you don't need to try to answer their questions in the start of the script because they don't even know what you're calling about yet.
Yep. So I want you guys to notice something. I had to fight to interrupt her. So the key to appointment setting, the key to calling on the phones, guys, 100% of it is delivery. 100% of it. She made it tough for me to interject. So here's what I want you to ask yourself. When you're going through your script, we're talking about the intro now, how frequent are you getting people interrupting you? And if the answer is, I get them interrupting me all the time, then I'm telling you, this is 100% true. There are times in your script that you're giving them that opportunity and you don't even realize it. See, Miranda, it took her a lot of time to get to the point where she's at now. It didn't just happen. She studied the script, she memorized it, she practiced how she delivered it, and she got it in a way where it was hard for people to interject. Now, a lot of times you heard me over talking her, right? And some of you might say that's a little bit rude. So if somebody's talking, you should stop. Well, she did. And then she used those 2 rebuttals. And the key with what she did is not only did she say, that's exactly why I'm calling, it's what she did afterwards that matters. See, the pitfall of an agent who's struggling on the phone is when they say, that's exactly why I'm calling, they wait for somebody to accept what they just said. And instead of them accepting what you just said, they have another objection. And then another one on top of that, because every time you answer something, you wait for them to accept it. But what she did is she created what I love is a run-on sentence. She ran on through. She said, that's exactly why I'm calling now. And she went right back to where she left off without hesitation. In fact, she didn't even breathe. She uses breathing in different parts of the script. And she was able to push through. Now, here's what's funny, right? The person that was trying to interrupt you, I would say at least maybe 50, 60% of the time, if you just use those 2 rebuttals, you're going to get further in the script than you ever have before. And in my opinion, if you can get through that intro 50 to 60% more than you're doing now, you're going to eventually book more appointments. It's a byproduct of it. It has to happen. So Miranda, that was awesome, man. Awesome.
And this is why we spent so much time a minute ago, guys, going over how you view yourselves. Do you view yourself as getting paid, $9 an hour for laying bricks? Or are you viewing yourself as you're going to be saving these families from a tragedy? Like saving them from, being able to spend time when someone dies and be able to grieve. Like I know that 9 out of 10 people that I call need my help. And I know that probably about 8 out of 10 of those people don't think they do. Right? So am I going to sit around and let them wiggle off the phone, or do I need to learn how to do this in a way where I'm leading them through to booking an appointment, because I owe that to them. They're not going to realize how important this is until I get to the end of my in-home presentation. But I know how important this is right now, and that's why I'm mediocrely pushy, but because I'm doing it with my heart in the right place. And Ben, I don't know if I that idea the way that we had hoped, but that was kind of what's in my mind when I did.
Yeah, you did, dude. You killed it. Can we do this? Can we role play again, Miranda? And this time I want you to go slower and then give me that space after you make I guess what I want to show them is how do we hear it on the phone so they can recognize when they're doing it. So you give that room for pausing. And then notice how many more objections I'm coming up with. So don't go crazy with it, but do what we hear on the phone, okay? So call me again.
So, hey, Ben Miller, please.
This is he.
Hey, Ben, my name's Miranda Martin. I'm calling about your mortgage for $250,000 with Wells Fargo Bank.
Yeah, I don't have it with Wells Fargo anymore.
You don't? Okay. Okay, well, that's exactly why I'm calling, Ben. I'm getting back to you about that postcard you received in the mail regarding your mortgage.
Oh, no, I never got a postcard.
Okay, well, that's all right. That's a great question there. Actually, I'll get to that in just a minute. It was either you or your spouse, Amy, who called the number and followed the prompts to answer a few questions so that we could contact you back regarding your mortgage protection options. And I was in the middle of getting your options worked up this morning, and I just needed a few seconds to get these questions to get this taken care of for you. Is that okay?
Yeah. No, my wife never did that. We're not interested. I'm going to stop.
Okay.
Man, that is exactly how the call did. That's exactly how the call goes. I mean, when we're on Zoom and we hear new agents start to dial, what they'll do, Miranda, is they'll pause at the end of the sentence like you did every single time on that script. And notice how many more objections I was able to get out. Now, here's what's crazy. If you're not ready and say you don't have these memorized, you actually progressively sound worse. So why would you expect the person to stay on the phone with you and listen? So you actually have to become an expert at those objections. And all she had to do to eliminate the majority of those was pause at the right spot. She still gave the right rebuttals, right? That's exactly why I'm calling. That's a great question. I'll get to you in a minute. But it's how she delivered that's going to determine what happens next. Love it.
And did you see he asked me about 4 or 5 different rebuttals that are on that sheet? But the thing about the deflection means you don't go to the rebuttal right now. You deflect it first in that first paragraph. And then after I'm done that first paragraph, and again, I'm going to throw another thing at you. If they ask the same question twice, you do need to answer it the second time. You don't want to double deflect the same thing because then they'll get pissed off. But if it's a different rebuttal each time, I can go all day long, and I've done it 6 or 7 times in the beginning if I had to. It's no problem. You just smile. That's another thing. Put that in your notes. As soon as you start a rebuttal, it's so important to smile when you start. And you'll notice that I did that throughout here because smiling is the ultimate sign of confidence, right? And what happens is on the phone, they can't see you. Communication, 50% of us communicating is posture and gestures and the way that we look. They cannot see you. So close to, I think it's around 75 to 80% of your success on the phone is based on how you sound. So smiling is like anywhere from like 75 to 80% of you being able to overcome that rebuttal.
It also helps you how you feel, right? I mean, the bottom line is if I'm not smiling, I'm not feeling good, man. And if I'm not feeling good, the person on the other end of the line is going to feel bad. You know what I mean? So that's awesome stuff, man.
So now that we've deflected, right? Let's say we've got through that first paragraph, we've deflected it, and now they start asking, more questions. So we do have to go ahead and answer them now, right? So we're not ignoring everyone. But let's say they say something along the lines of, I don't remember doing that. I think that's probably the most popular one that happens, especially on the call-in leads. I really want to try to change everyone's thinking on that rebuttal, because if these people called in, let's say a week ago, what's 7 times 24 hours, Ben? You're good at math. 7 times 24, 168 hours ago. Do you think they're going to remember something that took, 60 seconds that they did 168 hours ago? I don't know. Can you remember what you ate for lunch 3 days ago? I try not to let that make me upset, right? People are going to forget calling. People are going to forget mailing this thing in. Let me ask you, are you going to let that stop you from helping 9 out of 10 people that you get in front of? Right? Are you going to let that make you so frustrated that you can't call your next person, or just so frustrated that no one remembers? Maybe it was their spouse. Who cares? Here's the important thing, that if these guys, I was trained, and this was the number one thing that it was kind of embedded in my mind when I started here, was you have one objective, and that's to make sure when you're entrusted with this lead that if someone dies, the family doesn't lose their home. And I'm like, okay, so that's what I keep at the forefront of everything that I do. They say they don't remember it. That's no problem. I don't remember what I ate for lunch 3 days ago. No worries here. I have a couple things to cover with you. Right back to script, right? We've got some in here. I don't work. It's along the same lines. That happens all the time. My spouse does things he doesn't tell me. I get it, But the thing is, 91% of people in the country, if a breadwinner dies or they can't work, the family's going to lose the home. And I'm here to make sure that doesn't happen. So anyways, right back to script. Right back to script.
Yeah, a lot of agents in the beginning, Miranda. So there's two issues I see when we talk about this idea that people don't remember doing this. Unfortunately, especially for the new agents, the first thing that crosses that agent mind is the integrity of the lead. So remember how we started this call? In our old business, we had 3 beliefs: belief in ourselves and belief in the system was the second one. Well, here's what I'll tell you. Symmetry isn't an $80 million company, and this year headed to $120 million, because we don't generate real leads. Like, that's just not even, I hate to say it, but it's not an intelligent thought. So let's get past that. So we know the lead was generated, and what a lot of agents are going to try to do at this point, as soon as somebody says, I don't remember doing that, is they try to fight them and convince them that they did it. And what you're doing and what you're suggesting is, it doesn't matter whether you remember or not. What we want you guys to know as agents is be prepared, because most people aren't going to remember. It's okay. Don't be shocked. Don't let it take you back. Don't be anything other than prepared. So whenever somebody says, oh, I don't remember doing that, the first thing we're going to say is, well, that's okay. That's why I'm calling. Now that makes sense, right? So 9 out of 10 times that's going to catch them, and they're going to be okay. We're going to move forward with the call. But in a few more sentences, if I say, listen, I don't remember doing that. Neither myself or my wife did that. Now Miranda's going to have to give this rebuttal. That's the D and the O. The dot we first deflected, the same objection happened again. So now she's got to give me a real objection. And the objections we have here, guys, we realize there are probably a million different ways to say the same thing. It's not what you say, it's how you say it. So be strong, be confident in what you're saying. And then at the end, Miranda, can you highlight back to script? In the end, make sure you keep going back to script without a pause. That's the key on whether or not a rebuttal is going to work.
Yeah. You're right. There's probably hundreds of different answers that you can get here. These rebuttals were put here to give you something if you didn't have anything to use. But so, like what Ben just said, I hope it didn't skate over. It's not what you say, it's the technique of what you say it. No pause before, smile when you start it, and as soon as you're done, go right back to script. I've used the complete wrong rebuttal before, Ben, because maybe I was thinking about something else, but I said it strong, even if I was wrong, and I went right back to script. And a lot of times they didn't even know.
That's right.
Yeah, it was like, oh boy, whatever, that's okay. But
Well, remember this: the client doesn't know what you're going to say. So sometimes we beat ourselves up, Miranda, because we're not really on the right thing. Maybe we lost where we are in our scripts. Obviously, that's because we don't have it memorized. But let's say we did lose our part. The consumer doesn't know what we're supposed to say next. So whatever you say next, make it powerful and just stay strong with it and keep rocking and rolling. That's the key here. It's all about the delivery.
yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. So another thing too, when they say they don't remember doing that, I could be like, "That's great." Remember we just talked about that's great. That's exactly why they have me reach out to folks, because a lot of times people don't remember or something like that. Right back to script. I always find that it's really cool to kind of throw them off and say the opposite of what they think that you're going to say, and make their negative a positive somehow. So that's another kind of way to look at things a little differently.
Love it.
Um, Okay, so another thing people are asking is, what if they've already met with somebody and they've already got it taken care of? Um, the thing is that here, where is it? I don't remember doing that. I already looked into it. The thing I can tell you about policies that other people have, just because they have a policy doesn't mean it's the right one for them. It doesn't mean that it's the right price. And what I found by doing policy reviews is almost 100% of the time people don't have what they think they have. My
So
very
true.
first sale death benefit I had was someone that told me on the phone they had mortgage protection. They said it was $60 a month, and the gentleman had cancer, and he had cancer when they took it out. And I said, well, let me take a look at it. I'll be in the area anyways, and if you're all set, then I'll just leave you guys as is. But if there's anything I can help you with, I'll be happy to help you. And it ended up that was an accidental death policy only. And
Mm,
because I went out there and just checked it out just to make sure they're good to go, I ended up helping them, and they understood exactly what they had when he passed away. So I would still go out there and do a policy review.
absolutely.
No problem. I'm going to be in the area anyways. I'll be swinging by, and I'm doing some policy reviews in the area. What time? And then you just go right back to script. That
Yeah,
works.
that's a positive, right? This is an example of thinking differently, right? The magic of thinking big here. Some people, when they hear they've already looked into this or they've already purchased something, some agents will feel like they no longer have a chance. But see, in my opinion, when I hear somebody already bought something, that's the client who I need to talk to, because they obviously see the value in this. So it's a whole different type of sale now. It's a question of did the agent do the right thing for the client? And I agree with you, Miranda. 9 out of 10 times they don't have what they think they have, and I'm not at all shy to asking for it. So it doesn't stop me from booking an appointment. In my opinion, if they're living and breathing and I'm talking to them, I don't care how old they are. Same thing with age, right? I'll deal with somebody who's 87 years old and I'll still book the appointment because I can still sell them a critical illness policy through Mutual of Omaha. So nothing stops me from booking the appointment. That's the difference between somebody who's ordinary and somebody who's extraordinary.
Yep. If someone tells you they don't have a mortgage anymore, that's great. Like you got answers for all of that here. That's great. We do so many more things. You see right at the top where it says that's great. We're taking a negative and we're making it into a positive, right? Magic of thinking big. We do way more than just that. We do critical illness, blah blah blah, children's policies. I'll be in the area helping some other people anyway, so I'm gonna stop on by, and if it works, cool. If not, we have I have about 10 other people that I got to meet with that day. So I'm gonna just have 10 more seconds here, and then I'll get those ideas out to you back to script. We have all of these here, but probably my favorite one that I wanted to just take a few minutes and explain how to use this properly, because it's pretty intricate, but this is really when you figure out if you're spending your time with the right people. I know, Ben, when I was new, I was just getting so frustrated. Sometimes people would tell me they couldn't meet with me for 3 weeks, or that they wanted me to call them back, and I would go through the dot, right? The deflection, objection, and then sometimes they still want me to call them back. I'm like, what do I do? And what I found was if I pushed 2 times and I pushed them through the day time progression and they legitimately couldn't meet with me, I wanted to have a strategy that I could check for interest before I ended up calling them back and chasing them around. And this is how this one works here. Um, so really what I want to do is I want to remind them what they did, right? I want to remind them why this is important, and then I'm going to put them on Front Street to see if they are sincerely interested about that. So this is the T and the takeaway. This is how you do it. So Ben, let's say that we've went through all this stuff and you just say you can't do it because you've got people in town and yada, 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 you're really busy and you want me to call you back. Okay, that's the scenario.
Okay.
So Ben, you know what? That's exactly why I'm calling. And I'm going to assume you got this letter in the mail. Or if it's a call in, you'll just change that around. So Ben, you got this letter in the mail and you or your wife took the time to actually fill it out with your personal information and you put it in the mail and sent it back to get a quote. And on the letter, it said paying off your mortgage if you died or if you became disabled or if you got critically ill. So really what happens is 91% of the population, if a breadwinner dies or they can't work, the family loses the home, okay? So generally when a family takes time to fill this letter out and actually send it back to me, there was part of that was a huge concern for them. So what kind of thing, what of the things that I mentioned there do you think stood out as a concern for your family specifically?
Well, I mean, in the end, it was just me wanting, in case I died, my wife would, not have to pay for a mortgage.
So now, based on Ben's answer, does he sound sincerely interested? Yes. So I'm going to probably, now that I've pushed him through the dot, I'll probably call him back and he might follow up with something along the lines of, yeah, but I can't do this for 2 weeks as we're going out of town. Or if I do know he's interested now and he's not leaving, I might just go back to my date and time progression because now he realizes that, yeah, this is an important thing to me. And but maybe before he didn't really understand what he was saying no to. So this rebuttal just helped me to figure out, am I spending my time with the right people based on what they say here?
Now, let's be clear. This is not something she does on every single call. What happens the majority versus the minority of time. The majority of time, you are able to lead the consumer, and they don't make us do the takeaway. But there are going to be times where they're going to give us, they're going to basically tell us that they're not interested after we've deflected, after we've done the objection. Now we've got to do the takeaway to test for interest or test for how serious this is for them. See, your job on the phone is to exhaust all efforts. I've always trained that in our old business, and I train it here. If you don't exhaust all efforts, you're not doing right by the family. And what Miranda's doing right now is she's wanting them double and triple make sure that they really know what this was about and really figure out why it is that they responded. Because, guys, let's be real. When somebody tells me that they responded because they got something in the mail, that's BS, right? No one just responds. I get junk mail all the time, but it takes something important to make me respond. And these guys responded to it. So now our job is to find out why. And that's the purpose of this takeaway. But it's not what Miranda does first, right, Miranda? It's what you do last.
Yeah. Some people are asking, do you have a call-in version? No, just change right here. Instead of saying you got this letter in the mail, to say you got a postcard in the mail and you called in. What you're doing right here is you're just reminding them how you got in contact with them. So in the future, if we're doing an internet lead or whatever, hey, you guys went online and requested information. You're just reminding them how you got in touch with them because they probably forgot. Right. So, and then right here, all this was designed to do is to read off the postcard or remind them what was on the recording when they called in. So that's the strategy behind it. Remind them, and tell them, what it was again, and then qualify for interest. And here's the end part that's so important. I don't want to skate over this. let's pretend that Ben was not sounding interested. Let's say I went through all this with him, and all of a sudden he goes, well, I don't really care. You know, they're old enough and they can figure stuff out by themselves if I pass away. I'm going to still follow up with one thing. I'm going to say, okay, Ben, so let's say you know, God forbid you got in a car accident tonight and you didn't come home tomorrow. Is your family going to be in a good spot? And I'm going to
Yes.
pause. And sometimes you being real with them right there and asking them something like that boldly, I've had some people that acted like that change their attitude. And now I'm dealing with someone that wants to work with me instead of me begging them to work with me. Does that make sense?
It does. And don't we do the same thing in the home? I mean, if you really want to, like, God, conference is coming up, and you get the opportunity to meet face to face these producers that are just killing it. And I'll tell you right now, the one thing in common all these producers have is they don't feel they feel obligated to have bold conversations like that, Miranda. In the home, we get to a level where this is not about me trying to sell you a policy. This is me trying to make sure you understand where you are, right? And if I have that type of posture in the home, I'm helping the family at the end because they know I'm not trying to sell them anything. I'm trying to get them to understand where they're at. That's what you're doing here. You're trying to get them to understand. I love what you say on Front Street, right? You're trying to let them realize that, hey, this is your opportunity to protect your family if you feel like it's something that's important that you need to do. And you're calling them out on it. And you know what? It's hard not to be genuine and sincere when you ask me those types of questions. As a consumer, it's hard for me not to be genuine. And you know what? If I'm not, that means I'm not spending any more time with you and I'm moving on. I didn't lose anything, but I still exhausted all efforts.
Yeah, and if Ben does not take me up on this one, I do not lose any sleep over the fact that I tried my best. And if I've done 3 tries, deflection, objection, takeaway, and they take me up on my offer, I am okay with that because I work the system, right? I worked it as far as I could go, and it's not going to get yeses from everyone. I have days when I go 0 for 20 on adult contacts and on A leads. It's happened lots of times. Like, no one's perfect at this, okay? The thing of the matter is, I know that if I have my head in the right spot and I stick to my rebuttals and I know my stuff, I'm going to win overall for sure, 100% of the time over the
Love it.
course of there. So, all right. So, and one little thing that I want to add before we get to the next part, just one little side comment. Do not ask them if they're interested. Do not say, okay, Ben, well, are you interested in this? That is like illegal in my mind because is that going to generate him to be interested by asking him if he's interested? Are you interested? That's like you
Would
getting,
you do that?
that's like screaming in capital letters at him, you know? So instead of that, what this number 6 is doing is it's giving them a reason to generate interest. And this right here is really giving them a reason to, you know, paint that picture. If you die in a car accident tonight, is your family going to be okay tomorrow? And if that doesn't wake them up, I don't know anything else that will on the phone, just to be honest. So just wanted to throw that in.
And for the record, if you do book this appointment and you get them on the real, like on the real download, like we understand each other and the guy shows genuine interest, you're selling, you're helping that family.
Yep.
Like
Oh, yeah.
that kind of posture going into that appointment, you're helping them. So don't shortcut this kind of stuff. Now, again, this is technique. This is not something Miranda does all the way up front in the very first time. What she does is she deflects the first time. Then she gives an objection the second time. And then she does the takeaway if that's what's needed to happen. So keep that in mind when you guys are going through your appointments and dials tomorrow.
Okay. I'm just, if they don't, okay, if they've got an old lead, guys, it's the same deal. Like, I love old leads because someone's been calling these guys for such a long time, in most cases, but this is not something people, if they didn't take action on it, this is something that's going to happen based on a life event. Maybe they just had a health problem. Maybe someone close to them had a health problem. Maybe someone they know passed away. People are going to want to take actions with this because of things that happen in their lives. So don't try to prejudge. I think Ryan Miller, Ben's brother, had said no to life insurance. What he said, he got letters and stuff like, 10, 20 times. But after his dad passed away, him and Michelle both have $1 million life insurance policies on themselves now. Like they would never have done that before something in their life happened. I know me, I probably have 10 policies on me now just with things, but I didn't have any before I worked here. Before I, heard all the stories and actually saw like how important this is, like that's what happens is people buy it because of things that happen in their lives. So be excited to help them. Be excited to be the one that's reaching out to them with the proper mental attitude. Just because they got called 20 times doesn't mean it was by the right person. Be that right.
Hmm. Oh, and can I say this with confidence? How about this one, Miranda? I will tell you that if I just randomly interviewed 20, 30, 40, 50 agents in general in symmetry that are relatively new, if I ask them all what's their perception of what, if I say old lead, give me some characteristics, like how do you feel about that lead? Most of them don't like them, right? It's just a perception. But you know what? Most people don't work those leads because of that perception. So there's a gold mine in there. Everyone's staying away from it. So be the person that jumps in and get all the gold.
Yeah.
It's crazy how people just stay away from it because they feel like it's old. It's not old. It's actually just ripe. It's ripe enough.
Yep, you'll find those people that need you. They all need you. That's the one thing. Every single person you get on the phone, 9 out of 10 of them need your help. That's the cool part. So we're selling or removing. Who do you represent? I have coverage already. We've got multiple answers here for that. Email me some quotes. So I know we're kind of running out of time here, so we're gonna dive through this last part real quick. But one of the things that happened to me, guys, is I'm not a salesperson, so the thing that was really helpful for me through the entire process is if I had a rebuttal that kept coming up in my process, I just decided to add it into my presentation. And one of the things that I really struggled with on the phone was people just wanted me to email them, or they wanted me to like just, call them back when I had prices and such. So one of the things that I had to add into my script, just because also I was gonna go crazy, was I decided to add in a rebuttal telling them why I needed to see them before I told them I was coming out to see them. So I just wanted to give you a little snapshot if you want to take a picture of this, because this really helped me not have to cover so many rebuttals when I got to the date and time progression. So if what you're doing now is working, just continue on with that. But if you're struggling like I did on getting that like almost every single phone call, feel free to give this a whirl, because this really was a game changer for me on my how many appointments I was able to schedule. And the thing is that you want to laugh. Like I kind of make it sound like a joke. Ben, what I do is I'm a field underwriter for about 30 different companies, and I travel all over Fort Myers. Sometimes I'm in Sarasota, Fort Lauderdale. I go all the way up into Jacksonville occasionally, and I sound busy, right? I sign off saying I saw you and Amy, and you aren't walking around hooked up to an oxygen machine and are in good shape, and I laugh. And then I sign off so we can avoid any sort of medical exam. And I also have to meet with clients to verify their ID to make sure that they are who they say they are. So generally when I'm on the road, Ben, in a particular part of the country, I meet with like 5 to 10 folks in a row in a single day. So generally I only have like maybe 15 or 20 minutes to drop off the quotes and explain how they work. And that's it. Right there, I say it every time just because I know I'm going to have to deal with it later. So I just might as well get it done up front, in my opinion. So.
No, well, that's good. And I'm telling you, this is a game changer for me, Miranda, too, because I wasn't doing this before. I was going right into the appointment process. And that's where I would spend freaking like 7, 10 minutes going over why I have to see them. And it's very distracting. It's very discouraging. I lose my pace or where I was in the script, and my entire structure is now like demolished. So now what you're doing here is you're prepping them, right? You're preparing the mind. You're telling them why we have to go see them. You're giving them a reason. And it's funny because once you give somebody a reason why you have to do something, they're more likely to let you do it. So now after she's laid the foundation work here, now she's going to go right into what we call homework. So if you kind of narrow down what objections you typically get during this section, she just conquered the majority of them right now with this script.
Yeah.
And the only other objections you can be getting once you're going into the date and time progression usually has to come down to either their schedule or the spouse's schedule, which is what we're about to go into.
So someone asked when you put this in. I just do it before I get to the time when I'm asking them about their schedule. Like before I tell them that, not sorry, before I tell them that I'm going to come out to see them, I just throw that in there before that. Because once you start talking about dates and times, that's when they're going to start asking, saying that they want you to just send them stuff. And guys, the thing of the matter is, there's a rebuttal for that. It's at the very end. Hold on, where is it? I don't know if it's on here or not. Okay. I think this is one that it's not on here. Okay. There's a takeaway rebuttal, and it says something along the lines of, listen, I have about 300 people that I need to call today, Ben, and it's going to take me, I know, a couple hours to kind of work up the options for each client that I have to meet with, and I'm meeting with about 10 folks, in your area. And so if I took like a couple hours working up options for every single person I met with, I would never have time to or every single person that asked me to, I would never have time to kind of get ready for the folks that are actually going to take the time to meet with me. So I'm sure you can appreciate that if you were going to spend a couple hours, working up options for someone, that at least you'd want to review those options with them, right?
Yep.
So that's another way to handle that. If they say, can't you just send me something or whatever, I just want you to call me back. And that's kind of where I end up going if it's something that wasn't handled by this preventative maintenance admin. So,
and also I will point this out. If you're getting people kind of fighting on that, then the posture that's there is their time is more important than your time. That's how they're feeling. That's why they're giving that to you, because they feel like you're going to try to sell them something. So the best way to interact to counter that is to put your time on the pedestal over theirs. Listen, I don't have a lot of time. I don't want you to misunderstand what we're doing here. And when I flip the script like that, it's amazing what happens and how many people follow me. So it's not about me fitting into their schedule. It's about you fitting into my schedule.
So the big thing on setting the appointment, guys, if we're sticking to the date and time progression, which we trained on last time, really we're at this point in the script because now we're serious about picking a time, right? So really the biggest rebuttal that's going to come up is right in here for you in the script, on the call-in script. They're going to say they want to check with your spouse. And so this is the progression of how you handle this is going to make it or break it right here. And really, you just want to read it out. But look at each step of the way. We are looking to get a yes from them before we proceed. Because if we run into trouble, we're going to just go right back to our date and time progression. So I might say, hey, Ben, I've got Monday at 7 or Monday at 5, which is best for you and Amy? And he'll say, well, I need to check with her.
I need to check with my wife. Yep.
Let's do this, Ben. Let's go ahead and find a time that you know is good with you and you think will work with Amy. I'll hold that spot and then you can check with Amy. So let's just assume that this time works for Amy. Is 5 o'clock or 7 o'clock definitely a good time for you?
So notice what she did there. She put, so I said, I don't know because I got to check with Amy, right? So rather than focus on Amy's schedule, let's make an assumption. Let's assume it's going to work for her. Let's just consider your schedule for now. Assuming it does work for Amy, will this time work for you? So I'm dealing with the person who I have on the phone. So the wording here is very important. And if you do it too quickly, they're going to give you the same rebuttal. So again, here's the temperature check. If you give this rebuttal and right after they give you the same excuse, no, I can't tell you anything because I still got to check with my wife, that person did not understand what you said. And the reason why they didn't understand it is because you went too quickly through it. So you want to emphasize on certain words.
So you repeat it and repeat this again. Ben, you brought up a great thing. So if they repeat, I got to check with Amy, slow down and say it again. Sorry to cut you off, but you were onto something really good there.
No, you're good. That's what we're saying. So read those words, get it down, say it slowly, and emphasize on certain words. Like what I'll do is I'll say, okay, well, let's do this. Underline that, let's do this. I'm not saying, okay, what I can do. See, now you're trying to sell again. I'm not trying to tell you what I can do or what I would love to do. I'm not using any of that weak language. I'm saying, let's do this. I'm directing you. I'm leading you. Let's find a time that you know is going to be good for you. Notice I emphasize on you, and that you think will work for your wife. I'll hold that spot for you, and then you can check with her. So assuming this time works for Amy, will this time be good for you?
And it
So
says
I'm slowing
definitely
down and I'm emphasizing. Yep.
definitely a good time for you. So this is so critical, guys. And what you just pointed out, Ben, when the word can is a swear word. Okay, it's weak. What I can do is a question. What let's do this is you're leading them. Remember, we're leaders. We're leading them through to an appointment. Don't use the word can. Write it on the top of your page and put a line through it. Do not use the word can. Instead, let's do this is perfect. You use that as much as you can. Whenever you're not sure what to say, use let's do this. And I could just train on that for an hour, but I won't. All
Yep.
right.
Now,
They said yes. They said, okay, yeah, it is good for me. Okay, cool. I'm going to hold that spot. What if you could, Ben, give Amy a call real quick after we talk, and if it isn't good, I need you to call me back by 1 o'clock today. And if I don't hear from you by then, I'm going to assume that we're all set, and I'll look forward to seeing you at the appointment time. Is that fair enough?
yes.
The important thing, guys, is people are only going to take this serious if you make it serious. So give them a deadline. Don't say, yeah, just give me a call back. Because if you say that, they're going to call you 5 minutes before your appointment and let you know it's not okay. I want to close the door and hold them accountable to let me know. If not, you're going to be showing up at their front doorstep. And that is so, so important. I went through so much frustration in the beginning by letting them just call me, or I'd call them, and it's just a game you don't want to get into. Put the ball in their court. If they call you in an hour, then you still have time to reset that appointment because you're still in the middle of your dials, right?
And notice the progression here. The very first thing she did is she separated the schedules, and she got a firm commitment on his schedule. Then the next thing she did is she gave him a homework assignment with a deadline. She led him to what's next. Okay, so if you could give Amy a call real quick right after we talk, and if it isn't going to be good for her, could you call me back today at 1 o'clock? And if I don't hear from you, now she's giving him a consequence. If I don't hear from you, then I'm going to assume we're all set, and I'll look forward to seeing you at the appointment time. Fair enough? And now she's getting him to commit. Like, this is a strong appointment. Now, if you shortcut all this and just say, okay, so let's do this. Let's tentatively put something in the calendar that you think is going to work. And if for whatever reason it doesn't work, you can give me a call back. Fair enough? If you do that, you lose all your posture. Even if the person does show it's not going to be a good appointment, you're going to lose control in that appointment.
Yeah. And then again, remember, so we're going right back to script. And again, if they do say yes, don't forget this line. Are you positive that this is going to work for the both of you together? But if that's why this word definitely is here. So assuming this time works for your spouse, is this definitely a good time for you? So that's the same idea. Don't forget the definitely, guys, because we do want the person on the line to feel committed. Okay. I know, Ben, we're going a little over, but let's just look at the main rebuttals here for the the booking a time. 1 second, unless we got to get off. I think Logan might be using this line here for her call now. So.
Well, and just a quick comment, guys. We're going to be doing this at conference. So, if you haven't already, make sure you guys, it doesn't matter what classes you get into, make sure you get into some appointment setting classes. Like, you guys got to know how to work these phones, okay? But we are going to go into this also at conference.
I think the biggest one here, guys, is another one would be, does my spouse have to be there? And there's a really good rebuttal here. There's really no fancy footwork along with this one. Probably the honorable mention that I wanted to just kind of close down with was, can you call me to remind me of your appointment? This is kind of like the kiss of death here. If someone wants a reminder call, let me ask you why they're asking you that. Are they not serious about the appointment or what? Or if they ask me for my phone number, hey, yeah, what's your phone number? That right there is a sign to me that you're not serious. Why do you need my phone number if you're 100% going to be home? So just some things to be mindful of. So one of the tricks that kind of goes along with what Ben was just, we were just talking about, was if they ask me to remind them, I want to let them know that I don't really do reminder calls because I'm going to be driving in my car and I barely remember to eat, and I'm working with clients. So if you could, Ben, go ahead and put me down in your calendar and maybe set a reminder on that. That way you don't forget, because I'm going to be there at our appointment, okay? you know, if you call them and remind them, you're giving them an out, and they'll take it most of the time if you do that.
Love it. All right, Mer, I think we're wrapped up, man. I know we got so much more we could talk about here, guys, but we hope this was helpful. And Miranda, we have some thoughts on homework for the next part for the book, right?
We do,
Don't
guys.
stop reading.
We do. So really, if you have the homework to finish the books and to remember to test yourself weekly on the cue cards. Guys, we didn't have time to get into these last chapters, but they're so good. I went through them in the last couple days again, and chapter 8 is on how to do script delivery better. Like the stuff that Ben and I are training you on came out of chapter 8. How to relationship build, how to dig in and kind of get these people to warm up to you is discussed in chapter 9. How to get yourself motivated, how to turn defeat into victory, how to be a better goal setter, that we kind of dove into some of that in chapter 12 today, and how to lead yourself and the prospect in your team, and to make sure that what you're doing is worth duplicating. So guys, thank you so much for attending the webinars here. We recommend reviewing them multiple times, because again, we try to jam like 15 plus years of knowledge into 3 hours. So we understand that we're feeding you through a fire hose, but we hope that you can go through there and maybe break it down into 30-minute chunks and just keep watching it over and over again. So we'll see you guys at conference. Anything from you, Ben? We are good. We will see you guys then.
Everything is awesome. Everything is cool when you're part of the team. Everything is awesome when we live in our dream. Everything is lighter when we stick together. Side by side, you and I gonna win forever. Let's party forever. We're the same, I'm like you, you're like me. We're all working in harmony.